Hello and welcome to The Rant Presents Versus. Today I'm going to be pitting two uh, pretty similar games in some respects. Two spacefaring games. Two sci-fi games. I'm going to be pitting Borderlands, the pre-sequel, against Destiny. These are two games that I was indifferent about, mostly because I didn't have as much fun playing them as other games that came out. So let's get right down to it with Category 1. Category 1 is plot and story, which is pretty basic for the first category, which might just become the new Category 1. But I'm going to start off with the pre-sequel. The pre-sequel has a pretty basic plot. It's set between Borderlands 1, of course, and Borderlands 2. So you have this mini storyline where you are helping Jack, who isn't handsome yet, into being the leader of Hyperion and stopping some warlords, Zaphrodon, and from destroying the moon of Pandora. And you are Vault Hunters again. And throughout the story, you'll meet tons of colorful characters and fight plenty of enemies. Other than that's pretty much the plot. The basic characters are in there that you all know and love, and then there's some new ones, of course. Really, it's playable. The story isn't like amazing, and it's not like there's any real wonder what's gonna happen, because obviously Borderlands 2 already came out, and these people are, most of the cast from this game is still alive. So it's like, okay, there's no real urgency to get these people to live through the game. It's not like you can choose who dies or anything, but it's like there's no urgent, like you know they're going to live. So at the end, when Jack's face gets branded and it disfigures his face, it's like he's gonna live. He's just gonna get his plastic face on. So there's really no mystery to the story, but there are times where the story does get a little interesting. But most of the time it's just like, okay, let's just do this and get it over with, kind of thing. Destiny had pretty good scripting to it. The story was kind of cookie cutter, as I like to put it. It's simply about the last of the humans surviving on, I forget what it was called. It's just this giant sphere that suddenly appeared to them, and everyone moved there because the Earth was inhabitable, along with all the other planets that we had colonized. And so the Guardians, who are the souped up people who are kind of like the Halo Spartans, are defenders and stuff like that. So they go around defending the world, the universe, well, I guess our solar system, I should say. You fight an ancient evil robot army, and really, like I said, it's kind of a cookie cutter kind of plot to it. Mostly through the story, you're just, you're sitting through the cutscenes and you're wondering when they're going to end. As for like story and stuff like that, inside the missions themselves, it's just like, okay, let's run through, kill these guys, kill the boss, leave, we're done with the level. So on plot and story, like I said, these are two games I'm very indifferent about. Like I think they're okay games. They're not the best, they're not the worst, but they're just kind of in the middle. They're there, and I have to get plot and story to Destiny, because there is a I had to think about it because there's a little bit of mystery to it. And Borderlands, the pre-sequel, really doesn't have that mystery, because you're going to save the planet, or the Earth, the moon. You're going to save the moon. You're going to do it. You know that Jack's gonna live. You know that all the Vault Hunters from the first game who are in this game are gonna live. You know Moxie's gonna live. You know all those people are gonna live, and there's really no satisfaction in the end of the game, um, especially since the last boss is just ridiculously dumb. So I mean, so was Destiny's final boss for the main game. It pretty much had the same thing actually. You killed the three statues, and in Borderlands you kill, you bring his shields down 3 times, and he regrows his shield, and then he eventually dies. So, but still, Destiny did have a better plot, and it had more to it than what the pre-sequel had. Category 2 is free roam. These are big, massive games, quote unquote. And you'd think that the free roam would be amazing to be huge for all these games. I'm going to put my mic closer to my mouth so I'm not yelling. And I'll start with the Borderlands game, pre-sequel, which I might just call Borderlands or I might call pre-sequel sometimes. It depends on what my brain is what my brain is doing. Free roam in Borderlands, the pre-sequel, is pretty much just like any other Borderlands game. You run into different enemies, you do different things. The landscapes change drastically from one area to the next, even though sometimes it doesn't make much sense. Of course, there's towns and cities you can go into that have small areas. But really, compared to the last 2 games, this map is relatively small. There's one big open area, and then for like driving and stuff like that, and then the rest is just like, okay, let's run here, let's run there, let's run there, and the map could have been bigger, I feel like, and I feel like it just didn't happen. I think the 2K Australia was clenched for time, and they were like, okay, let's just skim this down a little bit. We're gonna make it a little bit more basic, and then we're gonna throw it out. So, as for free roam in the game, it's a big map with different loading sections, and it could have been bigger, but I mean for what it is, it's pretty versatile. There's a lot of different environments, and the enemies do how would I say this? The enemies do vary within the sections most of the time. As for Destiny, the free roam in it is relatively light. There are several small areas on the moon and the Mars and Earth and whatever the last place was. And I was expecting more. You always are expecting more because the game presented itself as some big, huge, roam the planet kind of deal. And it ended up being smaller areas that were more or less used for getting to the next mission. So instead of like Borderlands where you could do pretty much anything you wanted to, in Destiny it's more like, hey, go to the next mission. Don't worry about, shoot some enemies, but there's really nothing to free roam and look around for. And of course, I'll get the side missions in the next category, but for right now, the free roam in Destiny is just, it was so much smaller than I expected it to be. And the load screens are very long. I mean, you wait a minute or two before the next area, not the next area, but the next planet to load, or the next area of the planet to load. And really, it is not quite as large as, quote, a free roam should be. You know what I'm saying? And I know people will disagree with me on a lot of things, but for this, I think that the general consensus is the free roam was just not up to par with the standards of games nowadays. You take any game that's free roam and you pit it up against Destiny's going to lose every time because it's small maps, horrendous loading screens for how small the maps actually are, and every area seems pretty much the same, just with a different shade of paint. So that's why Borderlands pre-sequel gets a point in free roam. Category number 3 is side missions. And this is a big thing for a lot of these type games where they're free roam and you can do what you please at whatever time you want to. Um, Side missions are huge. They should be in every free roam game. I mean, I haven't even scraped the barrel of the Mad Max free roam side missions, and for Destiny, the side missions really aren't side missions. They're just you can find these beacons that plant into the ground that you can find, and you accept the mission, and the mission will either be find um, one of them's find this plant, and you go around and you find the plants, and there's one where kill 30 enemies, and there's one kill this certain enemy, and there's one that's more of uh, like when you kill an enemy, he'll drop something, and you'll pick it up, and it will add to your inventory, and you have to collect 20 of them. So you killed pretty much 20 enemies, and you collect. And it's not really side missions. It's more like tasks, and they're not fun. I mean, I doubt they'd be fun to do them with other people. And the only real fun, kind of like a side mission, is when I believe a satellite or something crashes on the planet, and then a super boss kind of appears, and you can take him out with however other people decide to come to your aid, or whoever wanted to get the loot. So that's really the only part of Destiny where the side missions are actually enjoyable. Most of the other ones are just mundane tasks that you go around and do. So that's unfortunate. In Borderlands the pre-sequel, yes, there's tons and tons of side missions, but are they fun? Most of them not. There were only there was about 5 that I actually kind of laughed while doing or was enjoying personally. All the other ones are kind of like, okay, let's get this done so I can get the 100% completion. There is literally one side mission where all you do is collect 50 guns of common type and put them in a mailbox, and then the guy comes on and he's like, "Thank you, help us," and it's ridiculous. It takes forever, and it's just dumb. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. But I mean, the only saving grace for Borderlands the pre-sequel on the side missions is that some of them are actually funny and some of them are actually fun, and there's actually things to do that are different from what you would normally do in the game. So instead of killing all these guys, you're doing something else. So that's why Borderlands the pre-sequel gets a check mark in side missions. Next category, which is category number 4, is graphics. And I always say graphics aren't the most important thing, but sometimes it'll make or break a game. And Destiny and Borderlands really are on par with the graphics. I'll start with Borderlands, of course, has the more cartoony-like graphics, but they're still good, and they make the game what it is. If Borderlands had normal graphics, it might not be as enjoyable. And the graphics are the same from the last 2 games, so there's really nothing different to look at. The games look relatively the same. Hardly have any problems with getting stuck in places, which is nice. And other than that, I mean the painted backgrounds that you'd see on the horizon, they're nice to look at for when you look at them. But of course you can't go to them. So, Borderlands does have nice graphics for what the game is. Destiny, kind of the same thing. It doesn't have the cartoony graphics, but it has more modern graphics, more like a Halo type feel to it, of course. The background for the worlds is probably top notch. I mean, it's kind of like it's painted on on your screen, but it looks really cool. There's a volcano in the background of one of the maps. I mean, most of the time it's just kind of like barren wasteland. But it does have some nice background images. The graphics themselves on the game, like I said, they're good. They're the best for when the game came out. Of course, they rival Halo's. So really, in the graphics department, if we're going to talk about good, the best graphics that a game can have, Destiny would get the point because Borderlands just used the same graphics from the last game. So at least with Destiny, they upgraded the graphics from a Halo game, and it was, you know, the good graphics at the time, which was what, about a year or two ago. Well, not well, more like a year and a half that Destiny came out, and they were the best at the time. So that's why Destiny gets a point there. Category number 5 is very simple. It's variety. Variety in enemies, variety in guns, and gameplay. And Destiny is very strong in the variety of enemies, but it's very weak in the variety of guns. And Borderlands is the opposite. It has a lot of variety in the enemies, but there's hardly any. I mean, I'm sorry, there's a lot of variety in the guns, but there's really not any variety in the enemies. And I'll start with Borderlands. Um, I mean, from the get-go, the first enemy you fight is, well, technically the second enemy you fight, because the first enemy you fight is in the prologue, and I don't really count those as the enemies because they aren't anything different than the ones that you'll fight later in the game. But the first actual enemies you fight are the scavs, and they have maniacs and all these other cool, you know, funny kind of creatures. Well, not creatures, demented humans that attack you. And you go on in the game a little bit, and you get to the next area, and you go up against the next enemy that's inside of a building, and they turn out to be exactly the same, just a different skin. And then you go to the next area, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen next? And you find that, you know, the same enemy, and they repeated um the same like base for all the human like enemies in the game. They all have the same kind of characteristics, except for the Lost Legion. At least the Lost Legion has some variety in them, but the first like 3 enemies you actually face in the game, they are all the same. And the monsters in the game, there's 2 new ones, which are the Varkids and the Shrugras, or whatever they're called. And really, they are pretty lame. And then they just took the a mix of the enemies from Borderlands and Borderlands 2 and kind of put them in this game. So you have Skags a little bit. You have a little bit of the what are they called? Really annoying ones that disappear. I forget what they're called right now. Uh, you have Thresher Maws and the Spiderling kind of things. So really, the variety in the enemies is so lacking on Borderlands. But the variety in guns are really good, you know. And every gun you pick up is different. You know, some of them might look about roughly the same, but of course they're going to be different in almost every way. They have different handling and different reload types and different damage, of course, and different everything. So they really excel in the gun industry. And of course, they took a lot of the guns from the first game and the second game. So there's a lot of those same guns in this game. So the variety's there, but it's kind of copy and paste from the last game. Even though there are different types you can find now, like the cryo weapons, but they just seem to be reskins of the old guns from the other game, and I feel like they should at least incorporate a little bit more newer versions of guns. Destiny, on the other hand, the variations of the enemies are very different. There are some that are kind of similar, but all in all, the enemies in Destiny are very different. Everything from the first enemy you meet to the last one you'll fight, they all have kind of this different kind of outlook to them. It's not just a reskin of a different enemy. As for the guns, I mean, there's like 6 or 7 base guns, and then the next gun you get in that same class that you would have is just a reskin of the gun, but with higher damage or a different fire rate. There's hardly any variation in the guns. Some of them may look a little bit different, but most they're all pretty much the same. I mean, I played through the game pretty much all the way. I got up to level like 32 on the original game. I didn't play any of the DLC. and I feel like all the guns were just the same. They were just a little bit better for your level. And all in all, in variety, I would really rather have different enemies over different guns. Like, the variety in guns is great. I love the variety in guns, but if you have the same enemies over and over and over again, it gets very monotonous. So that's why, for variety, Destiny gets a point. Next up, we have co-op and multiplayer. I'll start with Destiny real quickly. Co-op in Destiny is 3 people teaming up to go into the game and do whatever. And I feel like having only 3 people team up is really annoying, because normally people have an extra friend who doesn't get to play, and that person was me in my old group of friends. So I would be left out while everyone else went in and did the mission together. And it was really annoying, and it's left a bad impression on me. Especially because 4 is a normal number. Three people playing together is nowhere near a normal number. So, in the co-op division, Destiny fails, and in the multiplayer division, it's a PvP mode, 3v3. It's the threes. You can't have more people on your team, but the people they pair you up with are never your level. So if you're level 5, you'll be going up against level 20s and 30s, and they have better shields, better guns, blah blah blah. And really, Destiny just fails in the multiplayer section, to me. I feel like the multiplayer was just not needed. You could have just do more with the free roam and less with the multiplayer. Borderlands, on the other hand, great multiplayer. Play with 4 people. Every character is different, so you can have a variety of different characters with your team. That'll help you on whichever mission you're going for. If you just want to do, variations. Pretty simple, open world, run around with your friends. It's very nice. So that's why Borderlands gets the point for this one. So where we stand, each game has 3 points. And now it's time for the tiebreaker. Category 7. Category 7 is overall satisfaction with the game. And like I've said before, I'm very indifferent about both these games. But which one would I rather play? And it all comes down to how much fun I had with each game. And with Destiny, I did have fun at the beginning, but it started to wane out at the end. Same thing with Borderlands. I had fun at the beginning, I went through the game, and then I got really bored really quickly of it. But which one was more boring? Oh, it's really hard for me to decide. So I'm going to make my decision, but I would like people to comment in the section below what the better game actually was to them. Because I feel like I had more fun playing Destiny than I did having playing the pre-sequel. Even though I played the pre-sequel with my best friends, and we had a blast going through the game. Well, not a blast, but we had a good time going through the game together as different characters. And even though there's better free roam in the game, Destiny still had that core of story and graphics and variety that really outweighed Borderlands multiplayer functionality and side missions, which weren't as fun as I would hope them to be. So that's why in overall satisfaction, even though both these games are tied for me, they're both like 5 out of 10s. But if I had to choose to play one game for the rest of my life, I would really rather play Destiny rather than Borderlands, because at least Destiny, the side missions reappear, you can do them again. And there's really, I don't know. It's a very tough decision. I'm struggling a lot because I loved Borderlands. I love the Borderlands series, but really, if it came right down to it, I would really rather play Destiny than the pre-sequel, especially multiple times. I played through pre-sequel once. I played through Destiny once. And if I wanted to go back and do them again, I'd probably choose Destiny over Borderlands pre-sequel. So those are my thoughts. Please leave your opinion below because I know that not everyone thinks the same way I do about these games. And if you want, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want, and if you don't like it, leave a dislike, and I will compare you to the worst monster from Monsters, Inc.